Good morning. My name is Laura Padron, and I will be presenting some theoretical insights into the topic of migration literature in language education to develop intercultural competence in both English as a foreign language and German as a foreign language classrooms. Before we dive into the definition of migration literature and its possible applications, we first need to revise how literature has been traditionally used in second language teaching. Literature has long been a fundamental tool when it comes to improving linguistic competence in students' receptive skills, namely listening and reading, and also productive skills, which are writing and speaking. However, as the CEFR states, the use of language for imaginative and artistic uses is also important. In fact, from a B2 level, students will be expected to understand literary prose with different grades of complexity according to their level. Moreover, intercultural awareness is expected from initial levels. In this sense, migration literature has become a useful resource to tackle intercultural competence, given that it allows students to be aware of the bigger picture instead of working within narrow limitations of the concepts of source and target language. The development of this intercultural competence is essential not only for a wider comprehension of the topic of culture, but to prepare students to interact with people from other cultural backgrounds and thus make communication more effective. Moreover, we need to take into account that preparing them for these encounters or interactions is more pressing than ever, given the rise of international business models and also migration rates. However, teachers in Spain still prioritize the acquisition of language proficiency for many different reasons, among which we can find either time constraints or even the fact that students may only place value on the grammatical content because they deem it more useful and it's what they are going to be examined on. However, it is still important to find a place and a time to develop said intercultural skills as they are an essential part of language learning. In this context, we may want to shift from canonical works to more recent depictions of reality so that students can become acquainted with current cultural shifts. Migration literature has gained popularity because having evolved from other literary schools such as literature of exile and post-colonial literature, it paints a more nuanced picture of the target culture. This type of literature is known for portraying characters that are dealing with migration and its consequences, such as the feeling of loneliness or the feeling of never quite fitting into the culture. It tackles topics such as identity and its construction, culture, belonging, and even gender. What's notable about migration literature is that it blends the concepts of modern and traditional, and it makes way for a wider definition of nations and cultures. The use of migration literature in foreign language classrooms has been very impactful, given that it mixes literary pleasure with useful information. Through these works, students not only acquire a different perception of the target culture, but also become aware of the most important issues in our global society. In addition, as we have stated, it makes room for non-canonical works and for narratives that may often be excluded from the mainstream discourse. Before talking about some of the different topics that we can find in ML in the United Kingdom, we must highlight that Anglophone literature has been produced outside of England as well. However, most of the time, they can't find a place in EFL classrooms because they are deemed to be outside what is considered the standard. Migration literature hopes to break this barrier, including authors that may migrate from other English-speaking countries due to post-colonialism or from other countries in general. Some of the topics that we have gathered by analyzing different works and the struggles that migrants face when applying for their citizenship and the consequences that they may face if they don't have it. Moreover, because migration to the UK has been happening for quite a long period of time, we can find narrations not only from migrants themselves, but from their descendants, meaning second or even third generation migrants. In this case, they tend to struggle to find their identity because it seems that they are mostly torn between their family's culture and the UK's culture, which amplifies that absence of a sense of belonging to either one of those cultures. Moreover, we can find loads of experiences of racism, especially when it comes to people who openly practice other religions. In addition, another recurrent topic is the several challenges that migrants may face when finding job opportunities in the UK. When it comes to ML in Germany, its context is a little bit different to that of the UK's. Migration literature started to be more prominent in the 70s with what was called Gastarbeiterliteratur, which literally means literature of guest workers. This term conceived migration as a temporary condition, as we have inferred from the word guest. However, the political landscape in Germany has changed, and although they still receive a lot of migrants who are seeking better jobs and a better quality of life, they have also received large amounts of migrants who are looking for political asylum, for example, due to war in their country of origin. This is reflected in German ML as well as the struggles that they or their families may face with the language barrier. And we can also find different experiences of racism, which is something that it shares with ML in the United Kingdom. Another important topic is the role that German bureaucracy plays, as it is deemed to be a very long and meticulous process that sometimes prevents them from integrating fully in society. To conclude, I would like to state a few conclusions that we have drawn from this literature review. Firstly, that literature is essential to build intercultural skills, which are considered to be an important part of foreign language learning. Secondly, that migration literature is a useful tool in foreign language acquisition, given that it helps students broaden their ideas and conceptions of both the source and the target culture in comparing them. In addition, ML offers a wide range of topics, as we have seen, through which students can compare their culture to other depicted cultures, which is no longer limited to the conceived culture of our target country. And lastly, ML emphasizes diverse problematics that migrants may encounter depending on the country where they are based. Thank you very much for your attentions. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know, and thank you very much again.